June 4, 1942, 04:30 a.m. Aboard the flagship Akagi, steaming through the pre-dawn gray of the northern Pacific, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo stands on the bridge, the salt wind sharp against his face. The deck beneath him vibrates with the low growl of 4 fleet carriers, akagi, kaga, soryu, hiryu, each a floating fortress of steel and ambition, carrying 248 sleek aircraft ready for launch. Far behind, in the massive battleship Yamato, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto watches the same horizon from his command chair, pipe in hand, certain that the Empire's destiny rides on this moment. The plan is flawless in their minds. Operation MI, lure the battered American carriers into a trap, crush them with superior numbers and experience, then seize Midway Atoll as the stepping stone to Hawaii itself. Pearl Harbor was just the opening act. 6 months of unbroken victories, Singapore, Java, Coral Sea, have convinced them the Imperial Japanese Navy is unstoppable. The pilots in ready rooms below joke quietly, their Zero fighters gleaming under red lights, torpedoes and bombs already loaded for the first strike. Confidence hangs thick in the air, almost tangible, like the humidity before a storm. You can almost hear the metallic clank of chocks being pulled, the sharp commands in Japanese echoing across flight decks. At 04:30 a.m., the first wave roars into the sky, 108 aircraft slicing through low clouds toward Midway, engines thundering, propellers blurring into silver discs. Nagumo allows himself a small nod. The Americans are weak, their fleet scattered, their carriers still licking wounds from earlier battles. No scouts have reported enemy ships nearby. The element of surprise is theirs. But 1,300 miles away, in a dimly lit basement at Pearl Harbor, Station Hypo, cryptanalysts hunch over piles of intercepted JN-25B messages. Commander Joseph Rochefort and his team have cracked enough to know AF is Midway. They even tricked the Japanese into confirming it with a water shortage report. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, calm and calculating in his headquarters, has already positioned 3 carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, Yorktown, northeast of the atoll, under Rear Admirals Raymond Spruance and Frank Jack Fletcher. The ambush is set. Back on Akagi, the remaining aircraft are rearmed, torpedoes swapped for bombs in case a second Midway strike is needed. Fuel lines hiss, ordnance carts rattle across hangars cluttered with planes. The carriers steam in perfect formation, screened by battleships and destroyers, masters of the ocean. Then, at 0700 a.m., a scout plane from Tone reports surface ships to the northeast. No carriers sighted yet, but something is out there. Nagumo hesitates. Rearm again? Launch another strike? The indecision begins, small at first, like a crack in armor. The first American torpedo bombers appear on radar, slow, lumbering devastators from Hornet's VT-8, led by Lieutenant Commander John Waldron. They fly low, straight into the teeth of Zero fighters and AA fire. One by one, they fall, burning into the sea. No hits. Nagumo exhales, still safe. But high above, unseen, Lieutenant Commander Clarence Wade McClusky leads Enterprise's dive bombers, fuel gauges dipping dangerously low after a long search. He spots a lone Japanese destroyer, Arashi, racing north at flank speed. Instinct screams, follow her wake. He banks, leading his dauntlesses onward, gambling everything on that thin white trail across the water. The carriers below prepare to recover their first wave, flight decks crowded, fueled, ordnance unsecured. The trap is about to snap shut. 0702. Lieutenant Commander Clarence Wade McClusky, 39 years old, Annapolis class of 1926, grips the stick of his SBD-3 Dauntless so tightly his knuckles bleach white. The Enterprise Air Group has been airborne for nearly 2 hours, fuel needles trembling near empty. Below stretches only endless blue-gray Pacific, no sign of the Japanese carriers they were told would be here. McClusky's radio crackles with worried voices, pilots reporting bingo fuel, some already turning back toward the task force. He ignores them. He had made the call at 0920. Instead of heading to the briefed intercept point, he followed the wake of the destroyer Arashi, now racing north like a greyhound with blood in its teeth. That single white streak across the water is all he has. No certainty, no second chance, just instinct honed from years of carrier flying, and the quiet certainty that if he is wrong, his entire squadron dies with him. 34 Dauntlesses, carrying the last best hope of stopping Nagumo. You feel the vibration through the seat, the thin aluminum skin trembling as the wind howls past the open cockpit. The sun beats down, turning the plexiglass canopy into a greenhouse. Sweat stings McClusky's eyes. He glances at his wingmen, Lieutenant Dick Best on his right, cool and steady as always, the others strung out in loose echelons, engines laboring. Every minute burns more fuel. Every minute brings the Japanese closer to launching their own strike against Fletcher's carriers. At 0955, McClusky's heart lurches. Far below, through a gap in scattered clouds, he sees them. 4 long gray shapes steaming in column, akagi leading, kaga astern, then soryu and hiryu. The carriers are turning into the wind, flight decks alive with activity, planes taxiing, deck crews in white jerseys darting like ants. The first returning strike from Midway is circling to land, Zeros and Vals and Kates still carrying the scent of burning coral. McClusky keys his mic. "This is McClusky. I have the main body. 4 carriers. We're going in." No time for poetry, no time for doubt. He pushes the stick forward, the Dauntless nosing down, engine note rising to a scream. The rest of VB6 and VS6 follow, wings rocking as they peel off into attack formation. Down on Akagi's bridge, Nagumo has just ordered his reserve aircraft rearmed, back to torpedoes for the surface contact reported earlier. Hangar decks are chaos, ordnance men hauling 800-kilogram armor-piercing bombs off planes, rolling torpedoes back into position, fuel hoses snaking everywhere. The hangar is a bomb magazine waiting for a spark. No one notices the high whine growing louder from the northeast. Lieutenant Commander Lance E. Lem Massey's torpedo squadron from Yorktown, VT-3, breaks through the outer screen first. 12 Devastators flying at wave-top height straight into the Zero Combat Air Patrol. The fighters pounce like hawks. Tracers stitch the sky. One after another, TBDs burst into fireballs and cartwheel into the sea. Massey presses on, releasing at 800 yards. No hits. His plane disintegrates in mid-air. The last Devastator crashes burning. 0 losses for the Japanese. 0 damage. Nagumo allows himself the faintest smile. The Americans are brave, but their torpedo planes are obsolete, their attacks uncoordinated. His carriers are still untouched. Then, the sky above splits open. McClusky's dive bombers roll into near-vertical 70-degree dives from 14,000 feet, Wind screams through dive breaks, alarms howl, G-forces pin pilots back against armor plate. Below, Akagi's gunners look up too late, small black shapes plummeting like stones from heaven. Lieutenant Dick Best peels off toward Akagi, alone now after his section scatters in the dive. He centers the big red circle on the carrier's flight deck in his bomb sight. Steady, steady, release. A single 1,000-pound bomb arcs away, fuses armed. It punches through the deck just behind the island superstructure, explodes in the hangar below, right where torpedoes and fueled aircraft are still clustered. A second later, another bomb from VS-6 slams Kaga's forward elevator. A third hits Soryu amidships. In less than 90 seconds, 3 of Nagumo's 4 carriers are burning from stem to stern. Flames roar up through open elevators. Secondary explosions rip hangar decks apart. Torpedoes cooking off. Oxygen bottles detonating. 250-kilogram bombs detonating in chain reactions. Black smoke towers thousands of feet into the sky, visible for 100 miles. Deck crews scream, some leaping into the sea, others trapped by spreading fire. The once invincible carriers become floating infernos. McClusky pulls out low, wings rocking, tracer fire chasing him. He glances back once. What he sees will stay with him the rest of his life. 3 pillars of smoke rising like funeral pyres over the Pacific. But one carrier remains untouched. Hiryu, steaming at the rear, has escaped the first hammer blow. Her captain, Rear Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi, already orders his air group to launch Revenge in the air. The battle is far from over. 10:20 a.m. Hiryu's flight deck tilts hard into the wind, her bow slicing through swells at 30 knots. Rear Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi stands on the open bridge wing, cap pushed back, eyes narrowed against the smoke drifting from his 3 dying sisters a dozen miles south. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, once the pride of the Kido Butai, are now burning pyres marking the grave of Japanese invincibility. Yamaguchi's face is stone, but his voice carries the calm of a man who has already accepted death. Launch everything, he orders. 18 Val dive bombers, 10 Kate torpedo planes, and 6 escorting Zeros roar off Hiryu's deck in perfect sequence, wheels lifting clear as the carrier heels over from the strain. Lieutenant Michio Kobayashi leads the Vals. Lieutenant Joichi Tomonaga, already wounded from the morning strike on Midway, straps into his Kate despite a shattered arm, bandaged, soaked in blood, refusing morphine so he can fly one last time. They climb into the blinding sun, heading southeast. Their target? The American carriers that have just gutted the Empire's heart. Aboard Yorktown, Captain Elliot Buckmaster watches the incoming raid on radar, 40 miles and closing fast. Fighters scramble. Wildcats from VF-3 clawing for altitude under Lieutenant Commander Jimmy Thatch, the inventor of the beam defense weave that will soon bear his name. The sky fills with weaving tracers, twisting contrails, the staccato of 20mm cannons. Kobayashi's Vals roll in first, sun behind them, plunging almost vertically. Bombs whistle down. Yorktown twists like a dancer, her wake boiling white as engines reverse. One bomb hits just forward of the island, flames mushroom upward. A second punches through the flight deck and explodes in the rag storeroom. A third detonates in the uptake, snuffing out 3 boilers in an instant. Black smoke pours from her stack. Fires rage below. Yet, she lives. Damage control parties already racing with hoses and foam. Tomonaga's Kates come in low and slow, skimming the wave tops. Thatch's Wildcats tear into them. Tomonaga presses the attack anyway, releases his torpedo at point-blank range, then banks away, trailing fire. His Kate never pulls up. The torpedo runs true, slams into Yorktown's port side amidships, ripping a 40-foot gash, flooding magazines and engine rooms. The great carrier lists hard, dead in the water. Cheers echo across Hiryu's bridge. Yamaguchi allows himself a tight smile. One American carrier crippled. Revenge, at least, has begun. But 200 miles northeast, Spruance and Fletcher have already turned the tables again. Scout planes from Enterprise report Hiryu's position, alone now, exposed, her screen thinned. At 1700 hours, 24 Dauntlesses launch into the late afternoon sun. 10 from Enterprise, led by Lieutenant Earl Gallagher. 14 stragglers from Yorktown, who somehow got airborne again under Commander Murr Arnold. They find Hiryu steaming defiantly through a blood-red sunset, her deck already spotting planes for a second strike against the wounded Yorktown. Gallagher rolls in from 19,000 feet. The first 1,000-pound bomb hits just forward of the island, exactly where Dick Best's bomb struck Akagi that morning. A second smashes into the hangar deck. A third detonates amid parked Kates. In seconds, Hiryu becomes a torch. Flames race along her length, igniting fuel lines, cooking off torpedoes in white-hot blasts that tear the ship open like a tin can. Yamaguchi refuses to leave the bridge. As the deck buckles beneath him, he bows once toward the Imperial Palace, then stands at attention while fire consumes everything. By nightfall, 4 Japanese fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, lie dead or dying. Over 3,000 Japanese sailors and airmen will perish in the next hours. The cream of their naval air power, 248 irreplaceable aircraft and the men who flew them, gone in a single day. Far to the west, aboard Yamato, Admiral Yamamoto receives the final signals. Silence falls across the flagship's bridge. The architect of Pearl Harbor stares at the chart table, pipe gone cold in his hand. For the first time in the war, Japan has been stopped cold, and the Pacific will never be the same. Nightfall, June 4, 1942. The sea is black glass under a quarter moon. 4 enormous funeral pyres light the horizon like beacons of ruin. Akagi drifts listless, her flight deck warped and glowing cherry red from internal fires. Kaga lies on her beam ends 20 miles away, half submerged, her hull split by cataclysmic explosions that tore through magazines and engine rooms. Soryu has already vanished beneath the waves in a hiss of steam and oil, taking most of her crew with her. Only the glow on the water remains, pools of burning aviation gasoline spreading outward like blood. You can smell it from miles away. Scorched metal, roasted rubber, the sick sweet stench of burning flesh carried on the wind. Destroyers circle the wrecks like mourners, searchlights stabbing through smoke, picking up men clinging to wreckage or floating face down in fuel-slicked water. Voices call out in Japanese, hoarse, broken pleas for rescue, then fade as exhaustion or hypothermia claims them. The Imperial Navy's elite carrier air groups, the men who struck Pearl Harbor, who swept the Indian Ocean, who seemed invincible, are reduced to oil-stained swimmers begging for lines from their own ships. Aboard the cruiser Nagara, Rear Admiral Hiroaki Abe assumes temporary command of what remains of the mobile force. His face is ashen in the red emergency lights. Reports flood in. Over 200 aircraft lost in combat or consumed by fire on their own decks. The best pilots, those with dozens of kills over China, Malaya, the Philippines, gone in minutes. Replacement air crews exist, but not men like these, not experience like this. The Kido Butai, once the most powerful striking force in naval history, is a ghost fleet. Yamamoto, still aboard Yamato 700 miles west, receives the coded flash. Carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, all afire and unable to operate aircraft. He stands motionless for a long minute. The pipe slips from his fingers and clatters to the deck. No one dares speak. The architect of the Pearl Harbor gamble has just watched the Pacific War turn on its axis in a single afternoon. He knows what comes next: attrition. America's industrial might will now outbuild Japan tenfold in carriers, planes, pilots. The Empire's window of opportunity has slammed shut. Back at the wrecks, captains make the hardest decisions of their lives. Akagi's captain, Taijiro Aoki, orders scuttling charges set. He remains aboard as the last boat pulls away, saluting the burning flag still flying from the mast. Kaga's surviving officers do the same. Japanese destroyers fire torpedoes into their own carriers, clean, merciful ends to ships too broken to save. Massive columns of water rise as warheads detonate below the waterline. Hulls groan, then roll slowly under, dragging air pockets that boom like thunder across the empty sea. Dawn, June 5th. The ocean is empty again. Only oil slicks, scattered debris, and the occasional body mark where 4 fleet carriers once ruled. The Americans have withdrawn eastward under cover of darkness, guarding the crippled Yorktown as she limps toward Pearl Harbor under tow. Spruance refuses to chase. He knows the Japanese still have battleships, Yamato, Nagato, Mutsu, and enough destroyers to make a night surface action suicidal. He has won the decisive victory. He will not risk it for revenge. But one last act remains.
2 torpedoes pass under Hammond and strike Yorktown again, deep under the island structure. The blasts are cataclysmic. Hammond takes the 3rd torpedo square amidships. A 4th grazes her. In seconds, the destroyer folds in half, her bow and stern rising like broken wings before she plunges straight down, taking most of her crew with her. Oil and debris fountain upward, screams cut short by the sea. Yorktown shudders one final time. Her list increases to 45 degrees. Men still aboard scramble up the sloping deck, clinging to lifelines as the carrier rolls ponderously onto her beam ends. At 17:01 hours, she slips beneath the waves bow first, slowly, almost gracefully, trailing bubbles and wreckage. The Pacific closes over her like a wound healing. Back at Pearl Harbor, Admiral Nimitz receives the news in his Sinpak headquarters. His face remains impassive, but those who know him see the flicker in his eyes. Yorktown was more than a ship. She was the only American carrier to fight at Coral Sea and survive, the battered veteran that helped turn the tide today. Her loss stings, yet the scoreboard is mercilessly clear. 4 Japanese fleet carriers sunk against 1 American. The Imperial Navy's striking arm is shattered. The initiative in the Pacific has passed to the United States for good. Spruance's Task Force 16 steams eastward through the night, lights dimmed, radar sweeping the dark. No pursuit comes. Yamamoto has already ordered a general withdrawal. The dreams of Midway as a Japanese outpost of Hawaii within reach of a quick negotiated peace. They burn now only in the minds of men who will never speak of them again. The turning point is complete, but the war is young. The graves at sea are fresh, and the long road to Tokyo has only just begun. 2 torpedoes pass under Hammond and strike Yorktown again, deep under the island structure. The blasts are cataclysmic. Hammond takes the 3rd torpedo square amidships. A 4th grazes her. In seconds, the destroyer folds in half, her bow and stern rising like broken wings before she plunges straight down, taking most of her crew with her. Oil and debris fountain upward, screams cut short by the sea. Yorktown shudders one final time. Her list increases to 45 degrees. Men still aboard scramble up the sloping deck, clinging to lifelines as the carrier rolls ponderously onto her beam ends. At 17:01 hours, she slips beneath the waves bow first, slowly, almost gracefully, trailing bubbles and wreckage. The Pacific closes over her like a wound healing. Back at Pearl Harbor, Admiral Nimitz receives the news in his SINPAC headquarters. His face remains impassive, but those who know him see the flicker in his eyes. Yorktown was more than a ship. She was the only American carrier to fight at Coral Sea and survive, the battered veteran that helped turn the tide today. Her loss stings, yet the scoreboard is mercilessly clear. 4 Japanese fleet carriers sunk against 1 American. The Imperial Navy's striking arm is shattered. The initiative in the Pacific has passed to the United States for good. Spruance's Task Force 16 steams eastward through the night, lights dimmed, radar sweeping the dark. No pursuit comes. Yamamoto has already ordered a general withdrawal. The dreams of Midway as a Japanese outpost, of Hawaii within reach, of a quick negotiated peace, they burn now only in the minds of men who will never speak of them again. The turning point is complete, but the war is young. The graves at sea are fresh, and the long road to Tokyo has only just begun.
June 7th, 1942, Pearl Harbor. The sun rises over Ford Island, painting the water gold where the Arizona still lies entombed. Admiral Chester Nimitz stands at the window of his SINPAC office, hands clasped behind his back, watching destroyers and auxiliaries slip through the harbor entrance. No fanfare, no cheering crowds, just the quiet return of ships that have changed history. Enterprise and Hornet steam in first, their flight decks scarred by combat but proud. Planes parked wingtip to wingtip, crews lining the rails in sweat-stained khakis. Men who flew into hell and came back. Men who watched friends burn in cockpits or vanish in smoke plumes. They do not smile for the cameras that aren't there. They simply stand, exhausted, alive. Yorktown never makes it home. Her final resting place is 16,000 feet down, a steel tomb 3,000 miles from these familiar waters. But her sacrifice is already legend among the fleet. Sailors on other ships speak her name in low voices, the way one speaks of a fallen comrade who bought time for the rest to live. In the war rooms of Washington and Tokyo, the maps are being redrawn. The Japanese High Command convenes in emergency session. Admiral Yamamoto's report is terse, clinical. 4 fleet carriers lost, along with 3,057 men, 248 aircraft, and the core of experienced aircrew that made victory seem inevitable. The Army demands explanations. The Navy offers none that satisfy. The dream of a quick war ends here, in silent conference rooms where no one dares speak the word defeat aloud. From this day, Japan fights a defensive war she cannot win. Across the Pacific, American shipyards roar to life. Keels already laid for Essex-class carriers slide down ways in Brooklyn, Newport News, Bethlehem Steel. Liberty ships pour out of assembly lines like ammunition from a belt-fed gun. Pilots who trained in biplanes now climb into Hellcats and Corsairs. The industrial giant, once caught sleeping, awakens fully.
Midway itself remains American. The atoll's runways, pocked by bombs, are already being repaired. Marines stand watch in coral bunkers, scanning the horizon for an invasion that will never come. The Japanese transport fleet, once poised to land 5,000 troops, turns back under destroyer escort, their mission aborted without a shot fired ashore. In quiet moments, the men who fought reflect. Wade McClusky, back aboard Enterprise, writes no dramatic after-action report, just the facts. Fuel critical. Followed destroyer wake. Attacked at 10:25. 3 carriers hit. He receives the Navy Cross later, but never speaks much of it. Dick Best, the only pilot to score hits on 2 different carriers in a single battle, returns with lungs scarred by oxygen fire. He will fly again, but the war takes its toll. The code breakers at Station Hypo receive quiet commendations. Rochefort's team, once doubted, now vindicated. Minutes pins medals on men who never left their basement desks. Their war was fought with pencils, intercept logs, and sleepless nights. Years later, historians will call Midway the most decisive naval battle since Trafalgar, a single afternoon that shifted the balance of the Pacific War, from arrogance to humiliation, from supremacy to survival. 4 minutes of dive bombing that erased 6 months of conquest. The sun sets over the atoll. A gentle trade wind carries the scent of salt and distant smoke. Out there, beneath the waves, the carriers lie in darkness. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, Yorktown. Silent witnesses to the moment the tide turned. The long war continues. Islands will burn. Men will die by the thousands, but never again will Japan hold the strategic initiative. The Pacific belongs to those who can build, endure, and strike when the enemy believes himself untouchable. Midway is over. The reckoning has begun.